Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. My name is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Mr. Brent Card. Brent Card is co-founder of GC Legacy Construction and GC Legacy Capital. He has a tremendous amount of business experience, construction experience, and he's very good at getting things done. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Brent Card. Brent, welcome to ROI Clear.
Hi, Ray. Thanks for the introduction. Very flattering. I appreciate it. Glad to be on your podcast. I mean, we met a few times and I think we kind of connected right away as we think similarly. We have the same goals, same similar values, very similar. And once I heard you're Eagle Scout, what you do back home with your original troop, that tells me a lot about you. So
wow.
Happy to be on, yeah.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that scouting means a lot. So yeah, I appreciate that. For both of us, there's a lot of that history there. And we're both in Arizona. We were both in California. Moved to Arizona, not too far apart from each other. Didn't know each other back then, but I think we were part of that wave that moved here.
Yes.
And I think that wave is growing too. I think we were part of an early wave. We thought it was a big wave at the time.
Yep.
But that wave gets even bigger. So, that's wonderful. So, yeah. So glad to get together with you here. Awesome. So to start us off, we're going to, we typically do the, elevator pitch. For those who are new to the ROI Clear podcast, Brent is on an elevator with someone he wants to influence. And so, Brent, we're going to ask you, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
Yeah, so I would say GC Legacy Capital, our mission statement is we build legacy wealth. We really want to help people who may not have the means or time because they're doing their jobs. They don't have time to become experts at buying and managing real estate. That we're an excellent option for you. We have a construction wing, so when we do development, we can control this construction process, which is a big risk point for development. If your construction GC shows up on time, if they do the job right and on budget and on time. So we don't have any of those issues. With our construction company, I'm able to take that piece of risk out of there. Any type of massive value add on apartments, we can handle that as well. So I'm a relationship-based company as well. I vet my partners, my investors, as well as they should vet me. And through those various ways, 20 years and 24 years in the business now, I think I'm an excellent option for your people to partner with me on real estate deals, either stabilized apartments or development.
Stabilized apartments or development. So you'll do ground up, like certainly you do ground up with a certain coffee company. I hear that you're doing something with Starbucks, is it? And you like Starbucks, not just because of the flavor of the coffee.
Yeah, certainly they have great coffee, and they lead the market in accessibility and through mobile ordering, which is what I really appreciate. I always do through mobile ordering. But my partner and my wife, my two partners, Sarah and Jake, they run the construction company, and we're a preferred vendor with Starbucks. So outside of my work in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and now Tennessee, we build and we renovate and we do TIs for Starbucks. In Texas, we're one of the largest builders, if not the largest builder for Starbucks. We did some 40 plus projects for Starbucks last year in those states. So it makes sense that we would develop for them, and we've talked with them about it. That's definitely in the future plans. I've done residential developments. I'm now under contract on my first retail development in Crowley, Texas, just south of Fort Worth, 22 and a half acres. So that's really exciting. There very possibly could be a Starbucks going there. It'll be mainly QSRs, but yeah, I've also done dozens and dozens of stabilized apartments starting in 2000 till now. So I'm very comfortable in that. Current market is I'm moving towards the development for some of my value add investments. But yeah, I think end of year this year and into next year, I'll be getting a lot more bullish and a lot more busy in the apartment market.
Yes. All right. And your background, you've got essentially you've turned dirt into something productive. You
Yes.
put improvements on there. You say TIs, tenant improvements. And when I think TIs, I think more of internal. Like I think TIs as in you've got a vanilla box at a retail place, and then the TIs are what you would do to make it into the Gap or to Starbucks or Marshalls, or to customize it for that particular user. But is there another way? Would TIs also include what you're doing to the vacant land, or am I misusing the term?
No, you're 100% right. So TI is once the shell is built, so we'll build the shell, which we would call a ground up shell.
Yes.
And then Starbucks has that location, so we'll go in and do the TI and make it Starbucks, just as you described. They
Right.
also have refurbishes, which
Mm-hmm.
is, and if you anyone who goes to Starbucks a lot will know that every sometimes 5, definitely 10 and 15 years, they do some major refurbishing on their stores. They put a lot of money into freshening up. Actually, this behind me is a steel piece of artwork outside of a Starbucks that we did, and I just loved it, so I put it here. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll do. I think we did like 33 refurbishes last year for Starbucks, um, and those are quick turnarounds. Of course, they want to get they shut the store down and they want it reopened as quick as possible. So those are done in 30 days or less. And we go sometimes down to the studs and they do a complete remodel of that store. So those are kind of the three ways our construction company works with
Yep.
Starbucks.
And I'm sure you were part of it when Starbucks really started to roll out Wi-Fi. Like early Starbucks, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking in the 90s, maybe even before the 90s, they didn't have Wi-Fi, but mid 90s, late 90s, they started doing that. So what was that like? What was that experience like?
We didn't start building for them. My partner in 2010 is when he started down in Dallas.
Okay.
Um, Quite a disruption, of course, as we know around that time, '07, '08, '09.
Yes.
Um, I was developing in Montana, which our family is from. I'm from San Diego, but my wife and her side of the family is from Montana. We lived there at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
because of how things were with real estate, credit freeze, we moved to Texas. Brought Jake with us after some time. Funny story that a someone who worked my wife was helping manage a construction company in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Someone broke his leg. She brought her brother down to fill in for him for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He did such a great job that they asked him to stay. Then that's how he started building for Starbucks and made a name for himself all those years. And then we started a company 4 years ago, almost five, um, to do Starbucks, develop property, buy apartments, and kind of commingle construction and development. So
Let's unpack that a little bit,
yeah,
because here's what I'm seeing. There's someone who wasn't available to work, and Jake, you mentioned Jake, your
yes,
partner, and brother-in-law as well.
yep,
Okay. Jake came in, did a great job as an employee. As a result of doing a great job as an employee, they asked him to stay on longer. And
yep,
in the middle of that, you, your wife, and Jake together, you found a business opportunity. You identified a business opportunity,
yep.
and you made a company out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, opportunities are out there. So I'm sure you know this when you can spot them and you can recognize them and then you take action, you risk um, your job, you risk money and you put it out there and um, hopefully it's successful in this endeavor with our companies. It's been extremely successful. Um, and it's all relationship as well. The construction managers that choose who the GC is going to be on any project need to know that you're going to finish on time and on budget. And Jake
Yes.
had made a name for himself, and so they trusted him. And that's how we started a company. And then it took 2 years. It was during COVID. It wasn't the best time to start a construction company. But then we got our license, which is quite difficult to get because Starbucks, um, they're not picky, but they definitely need to know that they can count on this general contractor. So we
Yes.
got our license, and then from then on, we were off to the races with Starbucks. We did some um, office work for a doctor client of ours. We refurbished a Gold's Gym. So anything kind of in that commercial space, um, we can do very well.
And with each project, you deliver what you say you're going to do on time, on budget,
Yep.
and your reputation grows.
Yes. And that's
That's
really
the
where we get GC Legacy. We were very intentional to put it into our name. So GC is not general contractor. That's regrettable. It's Grossweiler, which is my brother-in-law's last name, and Card is my name, and
yes.
Legacy. So we put our names and our intentions to form a company that's going to live beyond us. And so when we don't live up to that, we need to be held accountable. So um, that's kind of why we named it that, to say this is what we intend to do. If we're not living up to this, then you should call us out on that, because we're putting our names and our intentions that this company will live beyond us and be a legacy company. So
Amazing. And GC, it doesn't stand for a general contractor in your name, of course, but
right.
everyone thinks GC, general contractor, so it certainly helps your
Yeah.
branding, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a little of both. So some of it, we've heard like, oh, you guys are legacy construction, because they'll drop the GC just thinking it's general contractor.
Yeah,
They say,
yeah.
well, it is our names. Maybe we should have been CG Legacy, but GC just sounded better for us. And again, like you said, it describes what we do.
That's fine. Yeah, that
Yeah.
works. Now take us back to the beginning, because although you know construction and although you know capital very well,
Mhm.
that's not your background. That's not that doesn't tie in directly with your college background.
Right.
And maybe you can tell us that story, because there's some people who major in all sorts of things, and it's funny how we might major in one thing and end up doing something else. That's just the way life works. So
Right.
tell us a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, I born and raised in San Diego. I went to Point Loma Nazarene University, a small college right on the coast in Point Loma, San Diego. I didn't have much of a direction. My parents did not go to college, so they were not able to instruct me that on how to maneuver through and how to pick a major and how that affects. I love history.
Mm-hmm.
History is still a passion of mine.
Right.
So it's in effect kind of easy for me. I always got A's in history, so I just said, well, I'll just be a history major because I love it and that's what I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
Not really knowing that when you graduate, you're either going to be a teacher, maybe you go be like a historian at a site, or you got to go get a doctorate to be a professor. Um, I knew I didn't want to teach in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suited for high school kids, and so I luckily found a at the time small syndicator who was buying apartments in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
on basically on his own, and was looking for someone that he could teach and help with his business. So he taught me the numbers, and taught me cap rates, taught me rents, taught me expenses, and how to underwrite deals. So it, I just picked it up really quickly, and I just immediately fell in love with buying apartments, underwriting apartments, looking at comps and looking at neighborhoods, and it immediately just came to me that this is what I want to do with my life.
Mm.
So at that time, apartments were doing very well. This would have been 2000, graduated 99, so 2000 to 2003. Um, and as you do one or two and you're successful and you have successful exits, as you know, money can rolls in a lot easier, and that you have that background. So we started getting more capital to syndicate with, so started buying more apartments.
Mm-hmm.
I underwrote 5 to 7 deals a day. Would drive by and look at apartments. Um, and so I just kind of learned everything in that 3 years, basically nearly for free. I got paid I want to say I got somewhere around $30,000 a year, um, straight out of college to do this. Um, Ended up working with the investors to talk through the deal, then with the attorneys to do LLCs. I would do the due diligence and help with inspecting the property and what to look for, how to interview tenants if they're in
Mm-hmm.
the units as you go through,
Mm-hmm.
how to keep track of future capital expenses that you know you'll have to take on, um, and then how to interpret that on, is this a deal we're moving forward with? Do we need to ask for certain concessions based on what we found? Any and all of that stuff. And then working with a management company. So I really got um, another college experience, but just the college of life through this man who taught me everything. And then from there, I just got better and better and more seasoned. I got my real estate license, so I got the real estate side and contracts and real estate law, which helped kind of further my education and career in California. So up until 2003, which is when we decided to start a family and then start that family back in Montana. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I went off on my own and started my own company and did bought apartments, did some development in Montana from '03 to '09.
That is, you know what makes me smile about that? You came out of college with your history degree
Hmm.
and you moved right into a mentorship apprenticeship relationship.
Yeah.
Did you know when you met this man, did you know that he would be a mentor to you? Were you just looking for a job? Tell us a little bit about your thought process then.
Yeah, I knew that this was so my mom was a realtor. So I remember her saying, "Well, you should become a realtor." And I was very arrogant, just out of college, of course, and I said, "Mom, you don't need a degree to be a realtor selling homes." I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to use my degree. At
Yes.
least get a job where you have to have a degree or else, I've wasted my time in college or so I thought. But once I started getting into numbers, and then you're dealing with, certainly on apartments, you're dealing with different types of brokers, different types of lenders and lending brokers. You're dealing with investors, which I just loved. Um, I knew that kind of this was the way forward. He was very successful in those days. I mean,
Mm.
anyone who bought apartments in those days were very successful.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
as a
Yeah.
broker told me, like you could buy completely wrong and you look like a genius in those years. So um, yeah, I knew I would just needed to learn everything I could from this man um, for as long as possible until it was time to go do it on my own.
That's the way that's the way professionals used to learn,
Mm,
directly from someone who knew it. And I
yep,
suppose many of the people who were really successful had a mentor. Either they knew they sought out a mentor and they found that person, or in hindsight, they look back, wow, I
yeah,
did have mentors and I didn't know it.
right. Yeah,
And yeah,
back then they didn't have real estate courses in college like they do today. Like for Southern California, you would think of like USC as a one estate school. Come out of that and jobs in real estate and um, all over the place. Back then, there really weren't. There certainly wasn't a major in real estate. So
right.
at that time, it was finding a mentor or just lucking into a certain job and learning about cap rates, about NOIs. It was really kind of in the infancy of syndicators. Before that, there weren't as many out there. A lot of it was just there was a lot of mom and pop still there, just
Hmm.
owning that just knew to buy a building and they owned it 20, 30 years and they wouldn't raise rents because they felt bad for tenants. And there was just
Yeah.
all that nationwide, but certainly in San Diego. I guess it's much more professionalized, as you are an example of some real professionals that are in the business buying and uh, but back then there were professionals, but it was just not to the level that it is today. So the
Right.
really only way was to get in and do it and to be able to to be willing to do it for free almost, which I did in the first few months, and to be extremely underpaid, but know you're getting an education. So,
Yep. Yep. And the education is worth more than the money.
oh, by far, yeah,
Have that vision. Yeah.
yeah,
Now, when we think about education, some people look at education as, the degree. You mentioned that, like the conversation you had with your mom, and
yeah,
but I think that, another form of education, they call it, you're familiar with this, the school of hard knocks.
yes.
Tell us a story, if you will, about your toughest challenge. The toughest challenge, it could be either on the capital side or the
Mhm.
construction side. How did you navigate through it, and what did you learn as a result?
Yeah, I mean, the toughest that I had to deal with was the '08 crash,
Mm,
and more importantly than the crash was the ensuing credit crunch, the credit freeze. And I keep telling people when values came down so much, that was bad. But the credit freeze for someone like me who was developing and owning property was much worse than
yeah.
values coming down. I had two large developments in Montana, um, 75 acres and 150 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Both had been underwritten by me and the banks as very good deals.
Mm-hmm.
They had lending in place for infrastructure. Um, Everything was there, and then that funding was pulled. Banks were in kind of in survival mode, like we all were.
Yeah.
So,
Mm,
what do you do with a piece of land when you cannot get a loan to improve it, and no one wants to buy it from you? Um, so that definitely gives you a different perspective. Anybody who came into this business, say 2010, 2011, who didn't have that experience, it's certainly for real estate or real estate investment. It's like my great grandparents, telling me about the Depression. If you
yeah.
weren't through it, you have no idea what it was like, and you might know some of the lessons that our great grandparents and grandparents learned, but it's not visceral. It's not you. It's you didn't live through it.
Yep.
So living through that was very difficult. And again, from a syndicator, I make money when my investors make money. So
Right.
not only was this land just sitting, I wasn't making any money because my investors weren't making any money. Then you learn about capital calls, which are
Hmm.
horrible and unfortunately are back in this market. We've heard of
Yes.
a lot of people through Raise Masters, how many capital calls that they've been doing in the last year or two. Um, and certainly there's way more money in the system now than there was back then. And everybody
Mm-hmm.
was cautious. Everyone was to their credit, was wanting to keep their money. And the big was not putting good money after bad.
Right.
So I had a lot of California investors. Um, the best thing that I could do was continue, even in those where everyone is in survival mode for themselves, continue to be the fiduciary that I told them I would be. So um,
Hmm.
I had a few kind of joint ventures. This lady who raised money and put them into our deals. We continually had investor calls, and I remember after a year, she said, she's in other deals around the country, and she said, "You're the only general partner who's still attending these calls. Everyone else has said, well, I'm not going to make any money off this. The deal's dead. I'm out," and kind of left her holding the bag.
Wow.
So after a few months, she said, "Brent, you're the only one who's still involved and working to get these projects moving and get investors at least back some of their money." So um, I just knew that that's what I had to do. Um, so it was a lot of workouts with banks, which again are starting to happen in our business again. Um, and so we did that. The hard thing with capital calls too is the truth of the matter, and what I told the investors on the phone is we could raise money and keep this property going. Um, or the best bet for you, especially being in California at the time and seeing 40% values drop, I said, or you probably would want to keep that money. And if you want to invest in real estate, invest in San Francisco, invest in San Diego, invest somewhere in LA, because those areas will come back first and stronger than Montana. Montana is a wonderful state, but it's kind of a secondary market, or even now it's a secondary, even back then. So all those markets would recover first. And I saw it after 9/11. Those markets would recover first, and then people with money out of those markets would come to Montana. But at that time, Montana would not recover before kind of the coastal metros. So I had to basically give them the advice to not save my project and to rather put money into it. And that was the case. If they would have taken $200,000 or $300,000 and bought a house in San Francisco, in the next 10 years, it tripled in value. So and we did not know when Montana was coming back. So it did come back slowly, but it really didn't recover until 2017, 2018. And then really kicked off during COVID, when everyone really discovered Yellowstone and discovered in a COVID situation, get to the state with the least people per acre. And so they had a huge rush then. But again, the coastal California had recovered 3-4 times by then. So that was the hardest thing to learn. I definitely, those scars, those lessons don't leave you. But again, I know you would agree, the being able to live with yourself, being able to hold your head high and know you did the right thing when other people were just in survival mode and to save themselves. It means everything to me. It means it's what we do in our business today. The trustworthiness, the fact that I can say in bad times, this is what I did. We had 2 cars. We sold one of our cars to pay on this loan for an extra 3 months on a loan that we knew we were probably still going to lose. But I told my investors I would keep it going as long as possible. So in 2010, we went down to 1 car. And sold the one and put it and knew we were putting good money after bad. But being able to look yourself in the mirror and do business the right way, build the legacy as we were doing even back then. I'm still grateful that I had my wife and my team around me were very supportive. But when we ran out of time, we held on to property for as long as we could. Then in 2010, I moved to Texas for the first time to get a job for a company, not my own. So that was quite interesting. So I knew I'd never been to Texas, but something told me, led by God, I don't know, but something told me to rebuild, that would be one of the best places to rebuild your family, and to rebuild your career. So I got a job with JP Morgan Chase in Texas in 2010, left Montana, have not returned to live there, although we'd like to one day. So then I got on the other side. Now I'm on the lending, kind of the dark side.
Okay.
And got to
But
see.
you know both sides. You know the receiving and the giving, or I don't know which you would say is giving and receiving, but yes, you know both sides. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's also part of my value proposition in a more lengthy elevator speech is I've been on all sides now. I know institutional capital. I know what they're looking for and how to best position myself with a bank to get the best funding possible. And at that time, again, I love education. I think that someday I would like to go back and get a master's in history just because I love it so much. But in 2012, I went to UT Arlington and got a master's in real estate development because I'm here working, but I'm like, I know I'm going to get back into development. I'm just sitting around, or so it felt like. I wasn't busy enough.
You were not just sitting around. Yeah. You're doing workouts. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. But nights and weekends, I'm like, there's always something I could be do to learn. Part of joining Raise Masters is part of that philosophy as well. There's always someone who knows more. There's always someone you can learn from. And certainly we found that in Raise Masters. But so I went back and got a master's degree, and I said, so I just I got to learn something through here, and let me get a piece of paper that shows I know what I've kind of done in real life, and now I have book knowledge or proof of it, and then here
Yeah.
with kind of life knowledge. So I went back and went back to school while I was in Texas, and that was the start of me getting back into development.
Man, what a pathway.
Yeah,
What a pathway from the book knowledge, the history degree, to the
yeah,
mentorship in San Diego, to the deciding to start your family in Montana. You were Yellowstone before that program came out there. You were there when there was nobody there. You were like a
right.
pioneer. You and a bunch of bison, I bet, right? So,
Yeah, there were bison up there. Yeah, there were.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
then, dealing with everything 2008, 2010, navigating that,
Hmm.
feeling called to Texas, going to Texas and joining JP Morgan Chase there and getting the
Yeah.
inside take there. And I bet you weren't the typical JP Morgan Chase banker. You weren't somebody who was a kid fresh out of college. You had some real experience,
Right.
and then you were inside there. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, no doubt you were someone that they counted on for leadership and wisdom because of your prior experience. And then you decided to top it off with the real estate degree, the development degree, the master's degree
Mass. Yeah.
that you did that in 2012. What an amazing and circuitous route. And all of that comes together, and you bring all of that to the table when you're speaking to prospective investors
Yep.
through GC Legacy Capital, and through when
Yep.
you're speaking to a corporation like a Starbucks or anyone else who wants to hire you for TIs
Right.
through GC Legacy Construction.
Yeah.
That is what has molded you.
Yes, definitely. I can't, yeah, I have a hard time being complacent. So I'm always looking at what can I be doing with my extra time. Um,
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to get back into development, and I knew I had a lot of knowledge. So um, just going back to school was kind of a no-brainer for me, and I learned a lot. I got to show that I learned a lot as well. We did the NAIOP, National Association of Industrial Office. I forgot what the P stands for, but they do what's called a Texas Shootout, and
Hmm.
for master's programs. So we went against Texas Tech and A&M and UT Austin, and our group, our professor formed us specifically to try to win it for UT Arlington for the first time,
Yes.
on a development project, and we won it. There were
Yes.
5 of us there, so that was a huge highlight as well, to show that this it's not a little school, but in the real estate world in Texas, it's not thought of as the real estate juggernaut that we were that year. Texas Tech is good. A&M is an excellent school for
Mhm.
real estate. Um, so we won it that year. So that's another kind of a very just
Yeah.
interesting fact, the real estate shootout. Of course, it's Texas, so it's a shootout.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything, it's either a shootout or a barbecue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
One of those. That's a real David versus Goliath story, too. Everybody loves those stories.
Yeah. But like me, most of our class were professionals who had already been in the business and were now getting degrees. So we had some really successful people, where A&M and Texas Tech, we were going against a mix, but certainly people who were still in college and hadn't gotten out and worked in the real world. So I think we had a leg up in that instance, and I think that's why he put kind of our team together. I think our cohort was about 30 students.
Yeah.
And there were 5 of us that went through and did this development challenge, and that was a lot of fun, and again helped me with my confidence, because confidence was not great coming out of 2010, 2011.
Yeah, I
Never
can
feels
imagine.
good to lose projects, something completely out of your control. And what did you do wrong? What could you have done better? I've been asking those questions for 10 plus years.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Those character building years, man, they hurt And it's not just, you know, physical hurt or whatever, but there's a hurt like in your heart. You lose a little bit. Well, we do lose confidence going through those,
Yeah.
but then later it shows up in strength, you know.
Yeah.
But we don't realize it going through it. We don't.
Right. And
Oh boy.
I firmly believe, and I tell this to my kids all the time, you know, the strongest metals go through the hottest fires.
Mm,
And again, we'll go back to the scouts. It is not easy
yes,
to be an Eagle Scout. It is very,
absolutely.
very difficult. You go
Right.
through a lot of tests, a lot of trials. You have to show your medal. You have to go through that hot fire. Um, I think also that's kind of what we're missing these days is there's a lot of kids coming up that haven't been tested. They haven't been through that hot fire. Our society is more where it's how can we get you comfortable? How can we make you feel
Yes.
good? So um I definitely had an easier childhood than my parents, and my kids definitely had a much easier childhood than I did. So
Yeah.
it's kind of how can we, even if it's artificial, how do we get them through this hard, through these fires so they come out stronger on the other side? And so that's been a big part of my parenting philosophy is lots of love, but how do we get them through stuff on their own to get to the other side and go, I can do this, rather than the quote unquote snowflake where you get that from when the heat gets turned up, you melt. And that's
Yeah. Right.
certainly what I want to avoid. But I've been through a lot of hardships like a lot of people have, especially people in real estate through that time. And it definitely made me a better person and a um, better investor, how to have a better eye for property, more importantly, recognize risk and try to mitigate as much as possible because you'll never get the
Hmm.
risk out of the deal. But how
Right.
can you mitigate it or explain to investors, these are the risks, this is what we're looking out for. Um, this is how we're trying to mitigate these, but these are the risks going into this deal. So
I especially like you said, you know, a few minutes ago how you said there was one investor who said to you, Brent, you're the only one who still shows up for the calls.
yeah.
That's a big deal. You know, what do you do when it's raining? Are you out there holding an umbrella or did you run off somewhere and, you know, yeah, are you doing
Right.
something, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. And
just
it's even hard to tell that because my just how I'm built is you don't talk about yourself. You would never
yeah.
say this is what I accomplished. And it's hard for that. But you know what I'm learning through groups again as I'm reading books and learning that um, today you need to promote yourself so people know who you are. So I say all these kind of begrudgingly so people know who I am, not to
Right.
take credit for anything. But that's just and Ray, just being with you, I know you would do the same thing. I know you're the same person. You have the same metal. If there was a problem with one of your projects, you would write it out to the end, whether you got paid or not. Um, I know you value your investors over your own money when you put money into a deal,
Yeah.
which I do. My investors' money is much more important than my own. Um, and I know you feel the same way. So yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
strive to be. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to get all the greatest deals. But honesty, integrity, communication is in my 24 years in the business is what I can offer people looking to invest in real estate that either don't want to do it on their own or can't because they're too busy, and
Hmm.
don't know all the rules and regulations or can't get loans on their own, who want to syndicate their money together so we can do bigger and better things.
Yeah. Wow. Brent, we are coming towards the end of our time together. Actually, we've gone over time officially, but I just really I really enjoyed listening to you, and I still have more questions I want to ask you to drill
Yeah.
into this. Let's, you know, as we wrap up, I got to ask you about the future. I know what you're doing with Starbucks and the TIs. I know a little bit
Yeah.
about your plans for multifamily. What, you know, and I'm going to ask this question. This sounds like an interview question that people get asked when they're fresh out of college, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I can't
Yeah.
think of another way to word it. But where do you see yourself in 5 years, and where do you see GC Legacy, both construction and capital,
Yeah.
in the next 5 years?
Excellent question. Because I do goals for myself. We do goals for our entire company called PPFs, Personal Professional Financial. We have all of our employees write those down. Accountability is one of our core values. So when you
Yes.
write them down and you show people, then I'm giving you permission to hold me accountable to these goals. In 5 years, my goal is to have 150 million assets under management, to have done 5 projects, whether development or apartments, be able to spend summers in Montana.
Mm.
For the construction company, we've been on an absolute straight up trajectory. Starbucks has asked us to open a location and start building for them in Tennessee. So we're
Yes.
going to Tennessee at the end of the month, and we're about to do a lot of Starbucks building, and from there, who knows?
What part of Tennessee are you starting in?
So we'll be to Tennessee and Kentucky. We'll be in Nashville, I think, is
Yes.
kind of our center spot. We can reach Kentucky and then Knoxville and Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting when a client like Starbucks says, "Hey, we want you guys out here in Tennessee," like they did. They said, "We've got jobs in Louisiana. Can you do them?"
Yeah.
We did them. And I remember they said, "This is the first job in 2 years finished on time in the state of Louisiana."
Mm.
So we grew in Louisiana, and then, oh, there's jobs in Mississippi. Can you do these ones? So we're Jackson and Petal and other areas. And now, well, what do you think about, we really need you in Tennessee. There's a lot of work in Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah.
So in 5 years, we'll have hope to have a large office in Tennessee, do more of the southern building as well. I'm under contract now on 22 and a half acres. Like I said, we're going to do a mix of pad sales, some ground leases, and we're going to build and keep as many as possible to do that triple net cash flow for our investors. So I plan on doing more of those, and then getting, as I said, getting into also the stabilized apartments, which is my first love in real estate investing, are still stabilized apartments.
Yes.
So
Stabilized apartments. Yes. Okay.
yeah, so I'm going to build out the capital side, because the last 2.5 years, of course, have not been great for real estate investments. And as rates shot up and cap rates followed,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just stayed on the sidelines, which was very difficult. As I said, it's very hard for me to be complacent. But the
Mm-hmm.
blessing there was I got to put myself into helping build a construction company. So
Yes.
I went full force into that, um, kept my ear to the market, was always reading and talking with people about what might be happening. But so the construction company is more than running without me. So now I can now focus wholly on the capital side. So I'm going to do more developments, buy some apartments. We'll buy our land for our headquarters and build our headquarters in the next 5 years. So the next 5 years is so exciting. I love what I do. I love that I'm now back in the game with this development, and feel that a year from now, 2 years from now, it's going to be a much better market, and people out there are going to wish that they were buying in these times, as I
Oh,
know
yes.
you are making very good
Oh,
decisions.
yes. We're acquiring now. We're closing
Yes.
on a deal next week. So yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brent, man, this has been wonderful. Great having you on the ROI Clear podcast. Oh, finally, I do need to ask you, what are
Yeah.
you reading or listening to right now? What books or podcasts would you recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. So the last book I read, actually, it's right here. Let's see if you can see it. It's called Teamwork. No,
Okay.
Teamwork. It's by Natalie Dawson.
Okay.
It's what we do, how we put our team first, and we take a lot out of that with all team daily calls, our PPFs. I also a very successful apartment syndicator, Darwin German, God's Money Flow.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading that. And again, I always have a history book that I'm reading. Here's The Two Lives of Charlemagne. So I'm
Oh,
always have
wow.
a history book close by. And then I listen to a lot of course, Hunter Thompson with Raise Masters, Grant Cardone with I use that to kind of help get me going in the morning, help to
Yes.
10x my abilities and my beliefs. So very busy on all those fronts. But thanks for asking. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Brent Card, it has been a pleasure interviewing you for the ROI Clear podcast. I've learned more about you too. I'm grateful for that, and it's really inspiring to hear just how you've gone from where you've gone, what you've achieved, and man, I'm looking forward to talking to you again. I always love it when we get together for lunch or whatever, so it's cool.
Yeah, same here. Like I told you again, I love collecting good people. And as soon as I met you, I'm like, so this is a guy I got to stay in contact with. You definitely know what you're doing. The deals that you've shown me are amazing and should be bought. Kind of get me a little jealous. Like, man, look at these deals he's finding. I can't find these. Look what he's doing.
Well,
So
all
I
together,
appreciate that.
we might
Appreciate your
collaborate on
friendship.
something too. Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
would
Yes.
definitely like to work with you on something. I definitely think we'll be able to get that going in the next year or two.
We'll do that. All right, Brent, be well, man. Thanks for
Thank
being here.
you. All right. Bye.